good to see you all back from your walk and your fruit. And this topic that I'm going to be sharing with you and over the next few days is mainly on nutrition. And I'll be sharing with you from a scientific background, so I guess you can look at it as more of like a science class, but hopefully we'll give you a deeper understanding, more clarity on the foods that you're eating, why you're eating them, and maybe answer some questions, on what you're eating. I do get a lot of questions on, do I get enough protein? What kind of carbohydrates am I eating? What is a complex carbohydrate? So I'm going to cover a few of those things, and then tomorrow's lecture I'll be talking about fats. And so understanding the different kinds of fats that you're eating and what it does in your body, what is high blood pressure, what is cholesterol, how does the foods that we eat affect, and why do we get those diseases? So today we'll be focusing on a carbohydrate and protein. So we'll be covering, sugars and different kinds of foods and what you're actually consuming out there in the world and what to avoid, and then give you a deeper understanding of how to eat better. So the first question I have for all of you is, what is nutrition? So if someone asks you, what is nutrition? What would you give as an answer of what is nutrition?
Feeding your body the right things so it functions at its optimum.
Yep, so feeding your body the right kinds of foods to give yourself optimum performance, right? Everyone agree with that? Yeah? So what we put into our body is what will be the result of how we feel during the day, how we're going to function throughout the day. So if you're a fast food eater, you're going to feel differently to somebody who is very good at eating lots of fruits and veggies and lots of nuts and grains. So there is a difference to how you fuel your body. And so this is a definition that you can find in a dictionary: the process of providing or obtaining the food necessary for health and growth. So all the kinds of foods that you're learning to eat are foods that's going to make you healthy and to help you to grow. So this week and the next 2 weeks, this is the kind of foods you'll be eating. And I know right now you're just taking fruits, but over the next few days as you start eating, you'll notice that a lot of your food portions are going to come from this bottom part, all the fruits and vegetables. And this is the vegan food pyramid, where we recommend that is where your main portion of your diet comes from. It's full of vitamins, all the minerals that you need, all the foods that God provided in the Garden of Eden for Adam and Eve that helped them to thrive. And it's amazing how the food and the fruits that God provided and the nuts and seeds that was provided allowed Adam and Eve to live for eternity, and it allowed them to live disease-free. And so the foods that we are introducing to you here is nothing new. It's something that is written about throughout the Bible and that has been introduced in the book of Genesis when the world was created back then. Okay, and this is the food pyramid that most people, if you go out into the world, will recommend. They'll say at the bottom, eat the most of what? Your breads and carbs. And then second, your fruits and vegetables, and then your meats. Whereas you see here, we've got all your fruits and veggies, and then your grains, and then all your other fats, and even minimal, sparingly the processed fats. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, your processed fats, what to avoid. Okay? So today, right now, we'll talk about a bit about carbohydrates. I know out there, you'll hear in the health industry, avoid your carbs. If you want to lose weight, stay away from carbs. So you've heard of Atkins diet. You've heard of many different diets where if you eat just high protein diets, you will lose weight. And it's true. If you do eat high protein diet, you will lose weight. But when I get to the protein part, I will talk about why you're losing weight on the protein and the effects, the side effects that comes with this high protein diet. But for carbohydrates, you know, the scientific name for sugar, basically carbohydrate is a sugar or a starch, which you'll hear interchangeably between these words: a starch, a sugar, carbohydrate. And there's 3 types of carbohydrates: the mono, the di, and the poly. You don't need to go too much into the scientific, but basically a polysaccharide is where the molecules, there's long chains of molecules all connected together. So if you eat a fruit, like today you ate a banana, you're getting mainly poly and disaccharides, where the carbohydrate, where the sugars are connected to one another. So when you're eating it, your body takes a long time to digest. Whereas if I ate a teaspoon of sugar, that would be your monosaccharide, whereas when you consume it, right away, it disintegrates. So when you eat something that's a simple sugar, within an hour, you're going to start feeling hungry. So if you are a big sugar eater and you like your desserts and your puddings and all of the high sugary stuff, your white breads, your white pasta, all of those things are great. The first thing is you will eat more of it. And the second thing is it digests very fast and it converts straight into a sugar. And if you're not exercising, if you are not active, that will just convert straight from your liver into fat and store as fat storage on your body. So one of those is to avoid your monosaccharides. Your polysaccharides are the ones that has not been processed in a factory. So if you get your wheat, if you get your beans, your seeds, all of those things that are not processed, you find that the chains of these sugars are connected. So when you eat it and consume it, it goes into your stomach, it takes longer for it to digest and you feel less hungry for a longer time. So if you're eating oats or brown rice and things like that, you're not going to feel hungry and you eat less of it. So when you're eating less of it, thus you don't eat so much and you're not gaining that extra weight that you unnecessarily need. So here you can get monosaccharides from glucose, fructose, galactose. These are all the simple sugars. And then your disaccharides comes from fruits, vegetables, nuts, your barley, your wheat, your corn, and you can even get that from your dairy. Your more complex carbohydrates comes from animal sources where the animal eats it and then it stores as fat in the animal. So when they break it down, they store it in the steak. So actually all meats have a carbohydrate. So they store as fat stores in the meat. And when you eat that, you break it down as glycogen. And that's a complex carbohydrate. Other carbohydrates are unprocessed grains. So you see your breads, grains, cereals, pasta, rice, potatoes, beans. So what makes it a simple carbohydrate is when we take these things and we manually break it down. So a potato is a complex carbohydrate, but when I take it and I mash it and I add things to it, and you've broken it down physically, by the time you eat it, you've processed it to become a simple sugar. Does that make sense? So if I take a whole wheat flour and I'm sifting out the fiber and I just use the white flour, I've taken out all the good stuff and I'm only eating a simple sugar, and your body doesn't need much to digest that. And then with that comes the dietary fiber. You've got your insoluble and your soluble, and I'll just explain that a little bit more. So you've got your insoluble fibers. There's 2 different types of fibers. So the insoluble fiber you find in all the peelings of your fruits and vegetables. And that is the kind of the bulk that adds to your stool. So just talking about stool, if for us dietitians, we love to know what your stool looks like. So in the hospital, we always ask you, what does your poop look like? Is it soft? Is it hard? Does it float? Does it sink? Does it smell? So we always asking that. Why? Because it tells a lot about your diet. So if you're eating fruits and vegetables, if you're peeling off it, all the peels, you're taking out all the insoluble fiber. The insoluble fiber is like tree branches. They do not digest. And what it does, it sweeps and cleans your intestines and your colon as it goes through your intestines, and it keeps your insides clean. So when you're going to the toilet and you are able to go easily without pushing, without straining, that means you've had good insoluble fiber, because the fiber clings on to all that dirt and the mess that other food that you eat, and it clings onto that and pulls it out of your body when you go poop. Soluble fiber is everything else that you eat without the peelings. So if I ate, for example, the apple, and I peel all the skin, you're eating just the soluble fiber, and you've taken out the insoluble fiber. If you're eating sweet potato, if you've peeled off all that skin, you're taking off that insoluble fiber, and you need both. So even if you're eating the insides of a lot of fruits and vegetables and you're taking off that skin, you can still get constipation. You can still get constipated. So I always tell my patients, if you want the insoluble fiber, keep as much of the skin on as possible to give you that insoluble fiber. And that is very important because that what prevents colon cancer. It prevents a lot of intestinal diseases. The insoluble fiber is the cleaner. It's like the scrubber of the colon and the intestines. So soluble fiber, as you see in that little corner, it's like the gel. So you need two parts. You've got the tree and then you've got the branches. So it's almost like bringing a tree with branches on it and cleaning your insides. Okay. So recommended fiber, 35 to 45 grams a day, and you can see all the different ways you can get fiber. Chia seeds is really, really high in fiber. All the different kinds of seeds and beans and nuts. The beans, definitely, because the bean has the shell on it. So if you eat like a pinto bean or a chickpea, they've got that outer shell. I know some people, when they have the chickpeas, they try and pull off the outside skin, but that's really good for you. So as much as you can, keep on the skins of all of these, because that is the cleaner of your intestinal passageway. The problem with processed starch is that all of that fiber is removed. So if you are a high junkie or you high processed foods, you love, you know, the white breads, the white pastas, the white rice, and all, as you see, lots of things that are processed, they've removed all the good stuff. They've removed all that fiber. They've removed everything that your intestines and your stomach and your colon needs. And so when you're eating it, a lot of people come and they say, I'm constipated. I only poop once a week. And people, even if you're pooping once a day, sometimes we say you can be constipated. So what the regular timing of you going toilet should be at least 2 to 3 times a day. You should be going poop after every meal if you've had a high fiber diet, because your body, the fiber does not stay in there long. It just keeps moving and it cleans out your colon. So at the next meal, your body should be clean, ready for your next meal to clear out through the other end. But if you're eating a lot of processed foods, meats, you don't have that fiber for your intestines to move it along. And so it does stay in there longer, causes other issues, and it sits in there, can cause rot, ulcerations, and you hear about a lot of intestinal diseases, Crohn's disease, and all of that can, in the end, a lot of people develop Crohn's and all of that later on because of the lifestyle that they've had before. Okay? And you don't want to overwork your intestines to get to that point. Okay, so the effects of food digestion on food glucose levels. So just a little bit on the right, focus on the types of sugars. So I've got here on the chart simple sugars versus complex sugars. So we're eating an apple, we have some apple juice and some applesauce. So the apple juice is pure just sugar. The applesauce is cooked down apple. And then we've just got someone eating a whole apple. So you can see someone who eats a whole apple, especially if you're diabetic, you can see the level of sugar and how it drops in your blood. And so if you are diabetic, when you eat your apple, it goes up and it has a steadier downflow and doesn't affect your blood sugar dropping too low where you can become hypoglycemic. So when you become a diabetic, the most problematic thing that we come across is where you get hyper and you get hypo. So there's days when you don't eat properly and you get super high, and then there's other days you're eating super high sugary foods, and then the next minute you know you've dropped and you're hypo. And then you're having to always continuously check your blood sugars. You never feel good. So this is a good thing that we teach diabetics is when you eat the whole plant of the whole food, it gives you a better, more stable blood glucose tolerance throughout the day. And we've noticed that those, like the apple juice, you see, it gave them the nice high, but it dropped significantly. And when you drop to that point and you get too low, then what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to eat something else to get your sugar back up. So what happens is your pancreas, if you are diabetic, or even if you are not diabetic, when you eat something that's very high sugar, insulin is triggered. And so your pancreas says, oh, wow, there's so much sugar in the bloodstream, and it tells the pancreas to release all this insulin. And they release this insulin based on what they detect from your blood glucose levels. So they will pour out extreme amounts to compensate for the amount of sugar that's been poured into your bloodstream. And then, but they don't know how long to pour that out. So they'll pour an extreme amount, then you'll go super hypo, and then your body goes, uh-oh, we put out too much insulin, and then you start feeling shaky and you feel low, you feel tired, you feel down. And that's when your body says, no, you need to give me some more sugar. That's why you get sugar addictions, because you get these high peaks and then you get these drastic falls of your sugar. And that's when you crave for this sugar to continue to give you that high. So we do, when you eat your apple or when you eat your whole fruit and vegetable, the amount of calories and the amount of sugar is much less. So the trigger on your pancreas is not as severe during that period of time. Do you guys have any questions?
So that would be for the full apple, not the peeled apple, or it doesn't make sense?
Yes, that would be the whole apple with the skin and everything on, with your fiber. And of course, the fiber, because it moves through your intestines so quickly, the absorption of sugar is lessened because the fiber carries out most of that sugar with it. Yeah. So you can see here the amount of sugar that you're getting in 2 apples is only a teaspoon versus 1 can of soda, ice cream, a Mars bar, and a slice of chocolate cake. And so the effects that it has on your pancreas and on your body and the amount of insulin that it continues to pour out, it's no wonder that we have an epidemic of diabetes today in our society. Why? Because all the foods that we eat is simple carbohydrates, and that your pancreas is not able to compete with such high amounts of sugar that's poured into our body, with the amount of simple sugars. So when God created food, He created everything complex. We are not babies. So, you know, when you have a baby, when I had a baby, you mash up their food, you process their food for them because they didn't have teeth. But when you grow up and you've got teeth, you don't need anyone processing your food for you, right? So what is being done is that these factories, these places are doing that first part of digestion for you before it even gets to your body, and it's taken out all the good stuff that you need. Okay, protein. Any questions about carbohydrates so far? So you know the 3 differences: the simple, the disaccharide, and the complex. Yeah? You guys look really sleepy.
So
You're all like,
between brown rice and white rice in their digestion time.
so brown rice is basically, it's taken out the fiber from it, and it's only the white rice, so you've only got the inside. So when you get the white rice, they've taken off the shell,
So it
and
takes
you're just
less time
eating.
to digest.
So when you get a white rice, it's faster to digest because it's taken off all that fiber. And so what happens is when you take off the fiber, your body says, woohoo, I don't have to do anything. It's already there. But when it gets to your stomach and it's a complex, your stomach takes actually longer to digest it. And when you take longer to digest it, you feel full for a lot longer. And so the key to weight loss is that feeling of hunger. And that feeling of hunger is when you're eating too much processed foods, because within an hour, you're starving. And then you want to eat something. That's why people, for diabetics, in the world, they say, well, you're going to be hungry, just have a snack. So you do 3 meals and 3 snacks just to maintain that sugar. But I've found through many different studies and with counseling people is that 3 meals, if you eat your complex carbohydrates, you don't need a snack in between. And you can lose weight on it. And when you've lost that weight, they found that you can reverse your diabetes. It's that weight loss and being able to control that sugar through your diet. Yeah. Any other questions?
I was just thinking, you mentioned something like a tip in relation to eating complex carbohydrates. What about like old age people that don't have teeth anymore?
So those who don't have teeth, I've seen in aged care, we do have to blend their food for them. So they also bypass that food. And so even if you're feeding elderly who don't have teeth, like for my children, I used to cook brown rice and I would blend it, but I would not take out that fiber. So that important part is that fiber still to maintain, because what happens is digestion starts in your mouth. So when you start your digestion, your teeth, that's why you have teeth, your teeth is what cuts down the food. That's the first part of digestion. And that, like what Joy was telling you guys, chewing your food actually brings on satiety. So it helps you to reach that level of satisfaction. And so chewing your food and enjoying that starts in your mouth. That's the first stage of digestion. Second stage is in your stomach. Third stage is in your intestine and colon. So you need to go through those 3 stages to feel satisfied. And so what we're doing is the food industry is doing your first stage of digestion. Second stage is here. Third stage is in your stomach. And by the time it reaches your intestines, you're hungry again. And so what we need to do is process our food where it's supposed to be. And so then we don't feel hungry and feel that need to fulfill that satiety.
Do all foods get digested in the stomach, or
Do all foods get digested in the stomach? Yes.
or like some foods started the digestion like in the intestine?
All your food gets broken down in your mouth. So your first process is where your saliva actually has enzymes in it. So your enzymes starts to break down or cut down the food together with your teeth. And then when it gets to your stomach, the acid level continues to break it down. And then when it gets to your intestines, the absorption starts in there. So your stomach has to be able to break down your food into a slush so that when it gets into your intestines, it's got those little folds in there. That's where the highest absorption goes in. Your vitamins are absorbed, your water, all your carbs, all your protein gets absorbed in your intestine. But if you haven't broken down your food properly, if you haven't chewed it well, if you haven't digested it properly in your stomach, and it goes to your intestines, you can have other issues like going to the toilet, diarrhea. You can have other issues of digesting the proper foods and absorption. That's why a lot of people take vitamins and supplements, because their intestine is not well.
And that's also for carbohydrates, for proteins and fats.
For all, yes. Any other questions? No? Okay, so we'll go into protein. If you think of anything else, you can just continue to ask throughout the lectures. But protein, again, just a little science behind it. It's made up of amino acids. They're building blocks of protein. There are 20 different kinds of amino acids. 9 that is essential, none that is non-essential. Non-essential doesn't mean that you don't need it, but the 11 means that your body makes it on its own out of the protein that it gets. So you eat it, and your body can take that protein and make its own other 11 non-essential proteins. The 9 essential, you can only get it through your diet. So it's very important. The kinds and types of protein, there's lots of information out there that meat provides all the protein, which is true, but it comes with other things. So when you're eating meat, it comes with the hormones that's given to the cow. It comes with the blood, it comes with the fat, it comes with the cholesterol, it comes with the saturated fats, and whatever the farmer has given to that cow to keep it alive is what you're consuming. So a lot of, we'll talk about that on Wednesday. I think we're going to talk about meats on Wednesday. So I won't give away too much, but what is protein used for? It synthesizes hormones, it builds neurotransmitters, muscle function, immune function, wound healing, skin and connective tissue. It builds different kinds of hormones to regulate your appetite, your sleep, your mood, your energy production. It regulates, basically protein regulates everything. So carbohydrate, protein, fat is necessary for the whole function of your body to be able to function properly. It's like a car. If you don't have the right amounts of oil or petrol or coolant, your car can't run efficiently. Okay? Where can we get our extra 9 essential proteins? They say brown rice and beans is the best amount of protein to get all your essential proteins. Brown rice and any kind of beans. Definitely pinto beans, garbanzo beans, chickpeas. Yeah. All the beans provide all your essential proteins. And even more and more healthy than any meat that you can eat out there. So you can see the soybeans gives you 31.3 grams, 1 cup. And I'm talking about the fresh soybeans, not soy milk, not processed tofu or anything like that, but just soybeans, the green ones that you can eat. Mung beans is good, yeah. All of them, all of the types of beans have lots of protein to provide you with the protein you need. So earlier it said what? You need about 35 grams of protein. So eating a cup of brown rice with your chickpeas, that will give you 15 grams already in one meal. So throughout the day, if you are eating healthy, you will get, without even thinking, the amount of protein that you need. Even fruits, even vegetables have small amounts of protein in it. Yeah.
Would it matter if it's GMO?
That's another topic for another day. But as much as you can, try to grow your own, organic, and as much and you know, for a lot of people who can't afford it, you do your best. You know, organic is very expensive. So if you are on a tight budget, you do what you can. And as you do what you can, God will still bless your efforts that you do. Right?
I actually sprout my own lentils. Just brown
That's
lentils.
great.
Usually
Yep.
takes about 3 days. Put just a layer in a bowl, in a china bowl, cover it with
Yep.
water, tip the water off,
Yep.
put a plate over it, keep it in the dark, and you'll watch them grow
Yeah.
over like 3 or 4 days, and they're really, really high in protein.
Yeah.
And
So
it tastes really good, and it's cheap.
yeah, it's sprouting, even alfalfa seeds and
Yeah.
things, all kinds of sprouting that you do. You can do that, and it gives you much higher protein as well.
You just keep watering them. So
Yes.
every time they dry out,
Yeah.
dip them in the water again, tip it off. and-
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good for you. Yeah.
What happens if you can't eat rice? If you can't actually digest certain grains? So would you get the same amount of proteins from the ones you can?
Yep.
Because I do remember something being written by Ellen White saying that you need to mix 3
Mm-hmm.
to get the right essentials.
Mm-hmm. So if you know that there's some things you can't digest, just avoid those and eat the ones that you can. There's lots of different grains. There's quinoa, there's chia seeds, there's millet, lots of different alternative grains besides the brown rice. And they're actually higher in protein than the brown rice. So I know chia seeds, quinoa is actually one of the highest protein grains out there.
I just want to ask about the soya beans. When we were still young, we eat a lot of soya beans. And when I came to this country, I was told, no, not really.
No.
What is really wrong about that? What happened to the soya beans?
Well, many, many years ago, there was a lot of, the milk industry was not happy that a lot of people were turning from regular milk to be taking soy milk. And so the milk industry decided to do their own studies. And they came out with these studies saying that high consumption of soy products will increase your estrogen and actually cause other problems like tumors and cancers. And it can cause, there was a study that I read that said that if you ate too much soybeans, your boys will turn gay because there's too much estrogen and things like that. So I have lots of studies out there, but if you look at the source where it comes from, a lot of the sources comes from the meat industry and also from the milk industry. They did that on purpose to detract people from wanting to change their diet pattern from switching from milk to soy. And so it is kind of a commercially gimmick. I have looked at other studies and I have found that you'd have to do excessive amounts of anything to be able to develop those symptoms that they were declaring. So I saw one study where they said they were consuming like 3 cups of soy at every meal. So they were feeding this to little mice, and they found that the mice would eat, this was in excessive amounts, that they started to develop tumors. Of course, if you're eating that high amounts of anything, it was going to cause side effects. So their studies I found was very one-sided and a bit extreme. And the amounts that you and I would eat would probably only be like 1/18 or 1/16 of the amount that they were giving to these mice. They have not had much showings on the tests of soy on humans. So a lot of their tests are lab rats and also other animals that they've put tests to, and they've found, we tested all the soy amounts, tofu, and we found that the mouse had higher amounts of estrogen, but that's extremely high amounts. We don't eat excessive amounts of soy milk. We'll probably drink soy milk with our cereal, and maybe have a bit of soybeans in our salad or something or on the side, but not all the time. So it's not to the amount where it's so excessive that my boys have not turned gay, or I don't see a guy who drinks a lot of milk suddenly develop this high estrogen and turn on you, you know. So the studies are a little bit extreme, and that's what's caused the scare in a lot of people, and they've published this, and it has brought a lot of people back to drinking milk. And that's what they want, because that's where the money is. So they don't want to lose their people on milk and meat. Okay?
But a lot of it is the genetically modified soy.
Yeah.
So that's high genetically modified
Yes.
option. And the isolate, if you look at the soy
Yes.
drink, a lot of it's not even soybeans, it's
Yeah.
the isolate. So they've removed it from the whole bean.
Yep.
And they've just thrown everything back in
Yes.
synthetically.
Yes.
So if you make your own, it's not so bad.
You can make your own as well, yeah.
Can you just repeat the questions for the video, please?
So the question was, what was the question? Does high soy have any effect on the body, and why? And there's a lot of people saying that they shouldn't be taking high amounts of soy because there has been a lot of information out there to avoid that. Okay, any other questions? So we'll cover a bit more about meat, protein, dairy, I think on Wednesday. There's a lecture on that, and I'll cover that in more detail. So if you have any other questions, maybe you can write it down if you think of anything, and in the next lecture we'll cover that. So here you can even see, I think this was very interesting. So lentils versus steak. So 1 cup of lentils versus 4 ounces of steak. 4 ounces is probably just the palm size of your hand, this little palm size. And you can see a cup of lentils is 17.9 grams. And if you ate that with brown rice, the brown rice would give you 5 grams. You probably have, 23 grams of protein there with your lentils. And then the steak would give you the 22 grams. And then you can see what's the cost. So if you are wanting to save money, definitely going more beans. You buying a big packet of beans could last you 3-4 meals, if not more, a kilo of beans. And so the cost for a cup of lentils soaked and cooked would be about 20 cents versus a piece of steak, which is $4, which is much more cost efficient and better for you. And you can see the amount of fat and saturated fat. Lentils has 0 fat and saturated fat. And the steak, look at the amount of fat that it has. And that's why when people come to me and say, oh, I've got high blood pressure, I've got heart disease, I've got all of these problems. And they said, but steak is so good for you, you can't live without it, you have to get the protein. No, you can get your other sources from somewhere else without the fat, and it will eliminate all those diseases that you've had without even thinking about it. So I think last month we did a 2-week health challenge for a church over in Malaysia. And there was this one guy, his testimony at the end, he said that he was on 2 different kinds of blood pressure medication, and the doctor was worried he was going to get a stroke, and they needed to put in a stent into his heart. And so he decided to go on this 2-week challenge, and he tried just eating vegan, lots of salad, fruits, and these beans. And he went back to the doctor, and the doctor was able to take off one of the medication and said, keep doing whatever you're doing, it's working. And so it does work. Changing that lifestyle can change a lot of your lifestyle diseases, which is developed from the foods that you eat. So do you really need to eat meat to get the protein? So I think we've established from previous slides that you don't need to eat meat to get your protein. Like a piece of beef there, 100 calories, give you 6.4 grams. And broccoli actually has more protein per 100 calories than beef does. It gives you your 11.1 grams of protein. And I like that little quote at the end. Plants have all the protein you need with none of the violence. So you don't have to kill any animals. And we can feed one another. They say that it costs more and it takes more of our grain and corn to feed animals than it does to feed our people. And there's more people starving in this world because of the amount of food that they have to ship to feed these animals to feed us. So they were saying to feed one cow in America, the amount of grain it takes to grow a cow and to feed it would be enough grain to feed a family in Africa. So think about that for 1 year. So we could actually eliminate a lot of poverty and a lot of problems with that. So calculating your protein needs, earlier I said you would need about 35 to, that was fiber. But for your protein needs, it's 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And for men or women who exercise a lot, do a lot of weightlifting, you'll do 1 to 1.2 grams per kilogram. So you can put that in your calculator, and then it will calculate whatever that number is. You won't need to worry about it, because as a society, we do excess protein. We as a society overeat anyways, so we don't have to worry whether you're getting enough protein. I can guarantee you've got plenty, if not more. So fact or fiction? A high protein diet is the best way to lose weight, and you need lots of protein to have energy. Without protein, you're going to be tired, you're going to be lethargic. There was one lady who went on a vegan diet, and after 2 weeks, she's like, I need to go back on my meat because I'm not having enough energy. And that's a fad that we've been fed, that protein is what gives you energy. It is not. You know that your brain cannot function without carbohydrates. If you starve your brain and you eat only a protein diet, you will get a stroke. So there's people that has been, the problem with the high protein diet that we've seen coming into the hospitals. When I was in the US, the Atkins diet was a huge fad. And the problem was we were seeing high, drastic amounts of people coming in the hospitals with strokes. And all of it was, the common thing was that they were on this high protein diet. They'd lost 15 kilos in a month, but then they were starving their brain. So your brain only lives off of sugar or carbohydrate. So without carbohydrate, you will feel tired and that you will feel lethargic. So it is not true that protein gives you energy. Protein is a repairer. So as you get to a certain age and you stop growing, kids will need a little bit more protein, but they do not have problems with it as well if they're eating a balanced diet. But as an adult, once you stop growing, all the protein you need is to repair muscles and replace muscles and bones that needs to be replaced. So your body every day gets rid of body cells, blood cells. It's always replacing and repairing. So your protein that's what it's used for. And it is not to provide energy. Carbohydrate is to provide energy. And high protein diet, yes, it is the best way to lose weight, but it comes with a lot of side effects. So to get the amount of protein that you need to lose this weight is probably 4 times what your body needs. So we found you get strokes and liver disease and also kidney problems. So people who do, sumo wrestlers who eat, I don't know if you've seen that sumo wrestlers need to eat about, I think 40 eggs a day to maintain their protein intake, all of them. By the time they're done with their sumo wrestling, by the time they're 40 or 30, they all are on dialysis. Their kidneys have failed and they have so many health issues because of the excessive protein. So what it does is when you eat high protein, your kidney works much faster or harder to get rid of the byproduct of protein. So every time protein breaks down, it releases a nitrogen into your bloodstream. And then it goes into your kidney, and your kidney has to take that out of your bloodstream and excrete it. And so what it does is puts extra strain on your kidneys. And that's why people who do have these high protein diets end up with kidney failure. So when someone tells me, oh, I've had kidney failure, I'm on dialysis, the first question is, do you take protein shakes? Are you big into protein, eating meat, and all of those things? Because even protein shakes, bodybuilders and all that, it's not necessary. And I'll show you a bit later some testimonies. So the results of high protein intake, you have a high protein intake, increases your calcium loss, increases kidney stones, and of course kidney failure. An overworked kidney increases ketones, which is what I said, high nitrogen, and it makes your blood acidic, increases heart disease. And what comes with this high protein is that amount of salt that you take, the amount of fats that come with it, and a lot of other problems. So if you do this Atkins diet, if you plan on losing the weight, great, but don't do it long term, because long term it will kill you. Another interesting fact is protein requirements for different species. So you can see what we need is 1.2 milligrams per liter of protein, and as you come down, you see that different animals need different contents of protein. And the reason why a cow has more protein or a dog has protein, because it takes them faster to double their birth weight. So when you have a human, it takes about 3 to 6 months for a baby to double its weight. So if a baby is born, it's 3 kilos. By the time it gets to 6 kilos, it takes about between 3 to 6 months, depending on the child and how fast it grows. So the amount of breast milk that comes from a human is 1.2 grams of protein in your breast milk. But what we're doing is we're taking the cow's milk and we're giving it to our babies. And so we're increasing the amount of protein that it needs. Whereas a cow, it takes them 47 days to double their birth weight. So what are we doing? We're growing little cows. Whereas God gave us as women, as mothers, to be able to provide the milk for our babies, the right amount of nutrition, the right amount of protein for our baby to grow at the right rates. And so the problem right now is that a lot of mothers are giving up the breastfeeding and they're choosing to take milk from an animal to feed their child. And the amount of protein and the nutrition that comes from an animal is to feed their baby, not to feed our babies. So the protein content is different. And that's what happens our children. And I did this study when I did my master's of nutrition. I did a thesis on the correlation of cow's milk and development of type 1 diabetes. And it has a direct correlation for children who are fed from birth. Cow's milk has a higher chance of developing type 1 and type 2 diabetes as they get older, and obesity, because of the type of protein that's been fed to the child when they were born. Because what happens, it changes your body's composition to process protein, the casein, and it changes your composition of digestion, and it develops an autoimmune problem to the protein and actually gives you type 1 or type 2 diabetes as you get older. Does that make sense? I hope it didn't get too scientific, too deep for you guys. Any questions so far? Yeah.
Can that one be reversed?
Can it be reversed? Type 1 diabetes cannot be reversed. So if a child develops type 1 diabetes in childhood, or any adult, type 1 diabetes is not reversible.
Okay, if the child is not having diabetes, and then the child start eating healthier, can that be possible?
It can be prevented, yeah. It will lower the chance, but it will still always be that chance for them to develop it. They're more sensitive to that protein to develop it later on in their life. Any other questions for that one?
Just wondering about those people that does not produce insulin. So, what would be best for them?
Those who don't produce insulin, so if your pancreas is completely gone, there's nothing else that you can do, but you have to take the injections or the pill. So I know when you are diagnosed with diabetes, they do check your viability of your pancreas, and they determine whether your pancreas is still working. If it's still working, you can take the pill form of the medicine that they give you, and that medicine just stimulates your pancreas to produce the insulin. But once your pancreas is gone, there's no reviving of your pancreas. So once your pancreas is gone, it's 0% function, you can't reverse that. So you have to go onto insulin. Yeah.
What factors lead to it?
Sorry?
What factors lead to it?
What factors lead to diabetes?
No, to destruction of the pancreas.
The destruction of the pancreas, that's like a whole lecture. But what it does is that, for what I was saying here is for kids, if we're feeding our kids cow's milk, what happens in the biological sense, in the DNA, it's copying the DNA, the casein, and it's taking that casein and copying it, and it's making it allergic to that. And so when the child gets older, for some reason, they create an autoimmune allergy to the casein, and then it rejects it. And then it affects the pancreas. And actually, the casein, the protein casein, is very similar makeup to the protein that creates your pancreas. And so what happens is when your child drinks too much protein, it comes to a point where your body says, hey, this casein is not good for me. And look, in my body, the pancreas has that same protein, and it starts to autoimmune attack your pancreas, and it destroys itself. So it's almost like arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. So it senses something in your body that's foreign, and casein is not something that's common to your body. And so when it sees that, it copies it and actually starts attacking. So dairy, cheese, and all of that actually can cause a lot of autoimmune diseases, because the protein makeup of casein is very, very, very similar to a lot of protein makeup in our body. And a lot of it comes from our joints and also our pancreas. And so type 1 diabetes is where your body attacks its own pancreas. And they found through studies that a lot of it is because of the high amounts of cow's milk that we feed to our babies that causes the problem later on. So children will get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes probably between the age of 8 and 15. And that starts developing when they're young. Yeah. Any other questions on that one? No? So this is a fun fact. Do you know that Venus Williams is vegan? And she has won 7 single Grand Slams, 14 double Grand Slams, 4 Olympic gold medals, and many women's singles titles. She's vegan. And if you hear her interview, she talks about how she's vegan. She takes no other supplements. She just eats a healthy diet. And she says that after every tennis tournament, her repair, her turnover of recovery is much faster than other athletes. So she's found that just being vegan and eating a plant-based diet, these athletes, all these athletes have found that their recovery and healing time is much faster. So Hannah Teeter, she's a snowboarder. She's an Olympic gold medalist. She's also vegan. And she has found the reason why she got an injury, and she was high meat eater, and her injury wasn't healing. And so she had a friend that recommended to her, hey, try a plant-based diet. And she tried that for a month, and she found the pain where she was having in her muscle healed completely, and it was gone. So ever since then, she's chosen to remain vegan, and she's just found that she's had even more energy than she had before when she was meat eating. And you can see the basketball player, he's one of the NBA champions. He also is vegan. This bodybuilder, he is also vegan. Oh, you want me to go back? And this bodybuilder, Barney Duplessis, I think he was Mr. Universe, but I think he is in the Guinness Book of Record for being able to carry a car or something like 15 meters down the street. And he changed his diet because he had lots of hernias and acid reflux. And he was also counseled to change his diet. And since he's changed that, all those health problems have gone. And he, I think you can find all these testimonies on this document, Game Changers. So they talk about these different kinds of athletes who have changed their diet and they are vegan. And all their health problems, all the things that they were suffering with is gone just because they took out the meat, the dairy, and the cheese. So it is not difficult to obtain your protein requirement if you are eating a healthy diet. You will get all your protein. God has made the foods for us on the trees and in the ground for us to enjoy that will provide what your body needs without you even having to worry or think about it. And you can live optimally. You can enjoy those foods and feel good. You'll find yourself sleeping better. You'll have more energy during the day. The pain that you had before is gone. And you'll have a better, just 100% in your life. Why do you want to run on a battery that's 50% when you know that you can make it 100%? Yeah. So my advice at the end of this is whole plant foods eaten whole. So if the food is whole, eat it whole. If you don't need to process it, don't process it. Why process it? If you can eat a banana by itself, why mash it? If your teeth is there, that's why you got it. So enjoy the foods that has been given to us, that's been planted whole, eat it whole. All right, any other questions? Great, that's it. Thank you.